the founder of CAYA, which stands for Come As You Are and Create As You Are. And this is one of our masterclasses. It's something that we like to do with people who are interested in collaborating. And Mackenzie was gracious enough to collaborate with us and to offer this really beautiful offering about the fertile feminine, female hormones, and energetics. And I just think that this is something that is so relevant, and it's definitely relevant for me. So I was super excited. I'm really excited to listen and to learn. But before we dive into this topic, I'm just going to invite everyone to arrive. So wherever you are, wherever you're located, just find a comfortable seat here. Maybe you feel your feet on the ground, the tailbone roots to ground as the spine lengthens. The crown of the head reaches up towards the sky. Your shoulders can move up, back, and down. Unclench the jaw. Soften the eyebrows. Release the tongue from the roof of the mouth. And on your next exhale, find a big yawn. And then take a deep breath in, filling up the diaphragm. Open mouth, exhale, let it go. Just like that, take another deep breath in. The belly expands, the chest lifts. And then exhale, letting all the air out. And we'll just do that one more time, taking the biggest breath of your day and really enjoying it. And then pausing at the top of your inhale and taking another sip of air in if you can. And then a slow release, releasing anything that doesn't serve you, reminding yourself that there's nowhere to go, nothing to do, no one you have to be here. And from this place, once you tune into your natural breath, you can bring a hand to your heart, maybe both hands to the chest, and just notice what feels alive and present for you today. There's no right or wrong answers here. Notice if there is a word or a sentence that feels most representative of how you're arriving, of what's most present. And I'm going to invite everybody to drop into the chat that word or that sentence, as well as their name and where they're located, like where they're tuning in from. Just so we can get like a little temperature check for how everyone's feeling. And then I'll pass it off to Mackenzie, who's going to guide us through a little embodiment practice before she shares this really awesome wisdom. So I'm waiting in the chat. Yay! Mira is feeling excited. She is tuning in from Houston. Aaron's, with my picture, feeling warm and tuning in from Mérida, Mexico. Yeah. I'm also tuning in from Mérida, Mexico. Mackenzie's open and excited. She's tuning in from Woodstock, New York. And then Emily and Sam, if y'all want to drop into the chat, the invitation is there. No pressure. And this will be, oh, Emily said she's feeling grateful. And she's coming from Wyoming. Oh, so cool. Love that. And this call will be recorded, so we will be providing a replay at the end. And so, just so you know, and the invitation is to get like something yummy to eat, maybe like a drink, maybe after the embodiment practice, but just to enjoy the information and to listen with like an open mind and an open heart. Sam says she's feeling eager to learn, and she's starting her moon today. Oh, beautiful, perfect timing. And you're in Brazil. Oh, incredible. I love that. Yay, so happy. So Mackenzie, whenever you're ready, I'll hand it off to you.
Perfect. Hello, everybody. I'm so grateful to be here and to have everyone here. Tam is just incredible. We met in freshman year in college, and it was like immediate soul sister. That's my girl. So I'm so proud of CAYA and so grateful to be here and to share what I love and what I'm passionate about. We're going to start today with just a little bit of yoga type, getting into our bodies Firstly, before we begin, I want to make sure that everyone is feeling really comfy and cozy and just like relaxed. If we were all together, we'd have like cushions and pillows and in a circle. So I just want to make sure everyone's real cozy. And you can find a seat on the floor if that's available to you. And you'll come to a crisscross legged position. And we're just going to start with a deep inhale, exhale, coming back to our breath. Just landing, letting our sit bones land where they are. Inviting you to inhale deeply, and on our first exhale, we'll inhale, exhale, F sound. Inhale, exhale. In, final ah. Very nice. So I invite you to root your sit bones and slowly sway left and right. Your neck is loose, your vertebrae is loose. We're swaying. Our body is rooted while our crown sways, vertebrae sways. Our nervous system mirrors that of a tree. Want to envision yourself just swaying in the breeze with gratitude. We're all here. Everything just is, just are, and thank goodness for that. And you can come back to a tall standing spine. Take a deep inhale. And on our exhale, we're just going to let our head fall toward our right shoulder. We're not straining, we're just letting gravity pull. And on your next exhale, you can let your head fall forward, chin to your chest. No strain, just gravity. Next inhale, you can swing it over to your left side. And you're going to tilt your head back for the other half of the circle, coming back to your right side. And you can just play with this a little bit. If you feel a knot at a certain spot, you might want to hang out there for a second. Just relax, breathe into it. Yin is so beautiful because you're not forcing anything. You're just lying into a posture, and in lying in it, you're restoring. You're creating space within your fascia, within your tissue. You can rest and open. Then you can come back up when you feel ready. Sorry, cars pass sometimes. I'm on a country road and it's mostly quiet, but there's a car every now and then. You can kick your right leg out if you're on the ground and that's available to you. Or if you're not, you can just stretch forward to your right side, up and over toward your right knee, opening up that lower back. So we're about to be sitting for a minute. Oh, and you can come back, switch to your left side, stretch it open. Oh, and when that feels complete, we'll come back to center. And just take one more moment to really feel our root connect with the ground beneath us, the floor beneath us, the bed beneath us, whatever it may be. And have a moment of gratitude for that ground that supports our bones, that supports our body. Okay, if we're all feeling ready, I'm feeling ready. Let's get started. So today we are talking about the feminine as it manifests internally in our menstrual cycle, but also the macro, the earth, and how they are all one, really. And it's just a matter of scale. And I'm really excited. So let's get started. We're going to open up with speaking generally about, oh, wait, here we go. Here's our class agenda. So we're going to start with understanding yin and yang energy, or the feminine and masculine. Just the basic understanding that underpins everything else that we're going to talk about. It's very foundational to understand the two poles of that energetic spectrum, to understand everything else. And then we'll move into the female cycle with that context in mind and talk about our female hormones and how there are certain hormones that are reflective of this energetic pole dualism. And then we'll zoom out a bit and take a look at the world globally from a macro lens, how we're doing energetically there. And then we'll zoom in again and see the macro reflected in the micro, and that the areas that we are struggling globally are mapped onto the female body in trends that we're seeing with a lot of hormonal issues, and how it is all really one central problem energetically, and everything is everything in that way. And then we will wrap up with speaking on balance and the quest for it in these wild times, and finding center in chaos and while the world is on fire. Okay, so let us begin. So yin versus yang energy. We want to understand the nature in the context of this cosmic energetic system of the more passive or more receiving yin versus the more active doing yang. The original meaning of the term yin yang signified the dark and light of the mountain, the dark being yin, the light being the lit up yang side of the mountain. Yin, or the feminine, I like to see as the dark hand of creation. It's the rest which regenerates while we sleep. It's the darkness of the womb that creates life continuously. It's unconscious. It's infinitely wise, and reverence for that is huge. Sorry, I'm having some notes here. So yeah, as I was saying, it can be described as passive, but it is passive in the same way that, water may be seen as passive, but it is life-bearing. It is the intrinsic life force within all of us that manifests, well, except Aaron, sorry, Aaron, meaning in the female body, physiologically, it manifests as our menstrual cycle. So it doesn't need to do externally in order to create, but it rather just creates intrinsically, if the conditions for building life are met. It receives as it does, it flows as it does. It is our energy of being, and it really speaks to us through intuition. It's subtle. You may feel it in quiet whispers of our subtle body, a contraction against something where your body is telling you no, or your body relaxing into something that feels good and healthy and fertile. Let me see. Oh yeah, I did a slide for this. Okay, so in the context, wait. Yeah, sorry. Okay, got my slides switched up, but we're steady chugging along. So in the context of female versus male physiology, the female body functions diurnally. That means our hormonal patterns shift along with the moon's. We mirror the moon. And we not only are intaking energy for our own life force to sustain our own bodies and vessels, but also with the need to, or the physiological need to support our menstrual cycle to be prepared for the creation of life if conception happens. So yeah, it's very important that we realize, like, we have storms going on. We are very dynamic. There's like a symphony that's orchestrating month after month. And we're not just supporting our vessels, but we're supporting this cycle. We're constantly creating, and to tie what we perceive as our creative capacity to solely what we have produced is to see life through only this external masculine lens in which we've been brought up and sort of coached or taught into seeing the world. Yang, or the masculine, is the energy which creates in the external world. It's circadian, it's patterning the sun, or the hormonal pattern of a man are that of the sun. Their internal hormones are consistent in that way. Sundown to sunrise, testosterone peaks in the morning and then falls at night. Compared to the female body, their bodies are generally more resilient to stress because they are not needing to constantly scan for whether or not it is safe enough to conceive. We have a big female body has a big responsibility in carrying life. And so, yeah, we have to be a lot more in tune with levels of stress and whether or not it is wise to conceive. And together, they balance each other and bring forth life. My friend once said that it feels like the masculine is like the bowl and the feminine is the soup. And I liked that. I really liked that. Yeah, the feminine feels more like free flowing as to where the masculine is more structured and ordered and logic based. Okay. Female cycle, female hormones. So I wanted to speak in the context of yin and yang energy, but applied to female physiology, how that relates. So we basically already have yin and yang energies that we can map through our two predominant hormones, reproductive hormones, estrogen and progesterone. So estrogen, it's the hormone that peaks at ovulation. It encourages cellular growth or proliferation. It lines um, it lines our uterus as we prepare for ovulation, and then um, it's an excitatory hormone, so it's really great and it feels like yang and this energy building up towards ovulation. We feel it and it feels very energizing and we want to do, and it's really supportive in that way when it's balanced by progesterone. Um, Progesterone is the progestational hormone. It's the hormone that kicks in, if it really kicks in, if conception happens. It peaks in the luteal phase and it stabilizes cellular structures, is very protective. It's a mild sedative. It's very calming. If you were to supplement with a lot of topical progesterone, it helps a lot of women fall asleep, and it mirrors yin energy in that way. Um, just calming, restful. This is if your cycle is in balance, your luteal phase gets sleepy, calm. There's a want to slow down and be with rather than do. Okay. Okay, so with those two hormones in mind, we're going to break down the cycle. And I chose the prettiest photo of the uterus I could. I feel like the ones they supply online aren't, I won't call them pretty. So I chose a very colorful one. Okay, so every cycle under the influence of follicle stimulating hormone. So we're, oh, I'm pointing at the screen like you can see my hand. I'm sorry. Okay, if you look at the ovaries and you see the eggs in there, the follicle, that's what we're talking about. So under the influence of the hormone follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, sorry, 15 to 20 eggs start to mature in each ovary, and each egg is encased in its own follicle, right? So then the follicles, they start to develop, and as they develop, the production of estrogen starts to increase. So the follicles grow, estrogen grows, our energy grows, and that is the energy that you start to feel in your follicular phase. The follicle, got it? The follicle is growing, estrogen is growing, our energy is growing. So if you follow the follicle, it's getting larger. They're all competing. Which egg is going to be the biggest? Okay, because that's the winner. That's the one that will break through. So our bleed has ended. We are in our follicular phase, and the follicles race to become the largest. Okay, and eventually ovulation occurs when one ovary releases the egg from the most dominant follicle. It takes about 2 weeks to complete this process, though it varies. Our timing in terms of ovulation varies as to where our luteal phase stays the same. So if you have a late period, it's not that your luteal phase took too long. It's not that your luteal phase, it's not a matter of your luteal phase. It's just a matter of whether or not your ovulation was delayed. So, anyways, we're back to ovulation. So, the primary factor in when your body ovulates is if your body has met the estrogen threshold, meaning that your body needs to hit a certain level of estrogen. And then when that happens, luteinizing hormone or LH surges in the body. It's like, okay, there's enough estrogen, you've met that threshold. LH surges, and that's the hormone that's responsible for the egg literally busting through the ovarian wall. Um, so after that point, after ovulation, the egg tumbles into the pelvic cavity and it's swept up by, you see those finger-like projections, the fimbriae? So it's swept up there and into the fallopian tubes. And after that egg has entered the cavity, the follicle is left behind, and that collapsed follicle is called a corpus luteum. Okay. And the corpus luteum, then, this, I think it's very beautiful. The corpus luteum, it's like the shell, the carcass, not the carcass, but like left behind by the egg, then that starts to secrete progesterone, which is very beautiful. I think it's like the end of that body, like, I don't know. I just find it beautiful that the vessel, then, what is left behind, is the thing that then supports the life in creating progesterone. And hence, corpus luteum, that's our luteal phase. So if we have healthy ovulations, we have robust follicles. We have robust follicles, then we can have really healthy levels of progesterone in our luteal phase because we're producing more progesterone. Okay, so progesterone is increasing in the case of conception. If implantation were to occur, progesterone just keeps on going up. It goes up like astronomically. It's very protective hormone and it just surges and is super protective. It's progestational. It's like, okay, we're cranking this up and like we are protecting this potential life, this life. So let's see, more information about the luteal phase though. It's generally about 12 to 16 days if there is no implantation for the uterine lining to then slosh off. So yeah, the beginning of the corpus luteum creating progesterone is the beginning of our luteal phase. It's just after ovulation. And if you were to want to know a way to track that information, you could track when your temperature increases by 1 full degree Fahrenheit, because progesterone is very pro-metabolic as well, and it increases our basal temperature up 1 full degree Fahrenheit. Um, so you would be able to then track your cycle with that and also your cervical fluid. We can get into that later if you guys are interested in fertility awareness. So here is the other graph that I pulled up, which looks at the estrogen and progesterone levels over time. And you can see the little follicle developing and then it breaking through. And corpus luteum, I believe, translates to yellow body. And that's why you see here it's the yellow body that is growing and developing. So both estrogen and progesterone thicken the uterine lining. Estrogen starts it, and then progesterone sort of thickens it in the case that there is implantation to occur. It helps make that more fertile grounds for that to occur. So yeah, there we have our peak of estrogen. In terms of the energetics, if you were to look, energy is low in menstruation, obviously. And then as we start to move through our follicular phase, as estrogen increases, so does that yang energy that we were talking about. Seasonally, that's like moving from spring to summer, right? And then post ovulation, we see estrogen start to decrease as the luteal phase takes off, as progesterone increases. And in an ideal situation, everything's working out, your progesterone level is higher than your estrogen level when your estrogen peaked. And that progesterone to estrogen ratio ensures that estrogen does not start to dominate over the progesterone levels. It keeps everything balanced. And we'll talk a bit more later, very soon, about the issues with having too much estrogen compared to progesterone. Here is a acronym to help you remember the stages of what's going on. It's FELOP, love. Okay, F is for the follicle stimulating hormone, which makes the follicles grow. Then we have estrogen increasing because of the follicles. Estrogen gets high enough, it peaks. Luteinizing hormones like, yes, okay, we're ready for that egg to pop out. The egg pops out, ovulation occurs. The follicle that the egg popped out of then is the corpus luteum and produces progesterone. We wait to see if there's conception. If there's not, after 12 to 16 days, we let it all go and we start over again. Okay, so the macro lens, we're going to zoom out and just think about the energetics of what's happening in the modern world, the Anthropocene, which refers to geologic time where humans are sort of the stewards of what's happening on the planet. And I think it's clear that post-industrial revolution that there has been an extreme amount of extracting natural resources to then convert into building the material world for human societies, right? And really what we're seeing is this endless construction, this endless building of the material world that is very yang. We all know this well, I feel like, living in Western societies, this need to do, this need to go, this need to build. What are you producing? What have you done? What have you done? So yeah, I wrote some notes here. Let me see what else I said. Yeah, we have cut at that which restores us, what supplies us with life and with oxygen for the sake of building up our material world. This is an excess of yang, while at the same time, it's a depletion of yin. And through this endless exploitation, we have cranked up CO2 and also taken away the sources of oxygen that the trees that convert our CO2 to oxygen, we've also cut away. So we are building up yang while also depleting our yin at the same time. And we are also creating desertification through monocropping, which creates real like hot spots on the planet, which is also increasing the temperature. And what I find really interesting is that like the symbolic representation of yang, of the masculine, is the sun. And what we have done on earth in our actions globally with deforestation and just the way that we consume is that we've amplified the effects of the sun. And at the same time, if you think about the symbolic representation of the feminine, the moon modulates the tides, it modulates the seasons. And with this overabundance of yang energy, we're seeing an imbalance with the yin in that our seasons are now changing. Our winters are not as cold. Our summers are creating wildfires. Like, we're seeing that there is an excess of yang globally, and that's why we're seeing climate change to the degree that we are. So everything is everything, and the female body, we are not impervious to what is happening societally. Like, the female body really has these issues mapped onto it. Like, we are all so interconnected that there's no way we can all live in this excess of yang and be interconnected but unfazed or unaffected by it. And especially in the Western world, the way that we live with these masculine structures and these masculine ways of order, doing, going, sort of endlessly to our own detriment, it has manifested for a lot of women with estrogen dominance related hormonal issues. Like I was saying, estrogen is the hormone of proliferation, of cellular growth. And in the context of estrogen dominance, you'll start to have issues like overgrowths, like what happens in PCOS and endometriosis, fibroids. If you have an excess of estrogen to progesterone, you'll have a lot of PMS and like really uncomfortable luteal phases. Like the same way that we see our winters shortening and they're not as cold as they once were, we're having luteal phases that aren't as restful, and they're marked with a lot of like emotional distress. And all of these hormonal problems are linked to, everyone is different, and of course, you know, there's bio individuality, but on the whole, especially with a lot of the cancers and things that we're seeing, it's tied to this excess yang, this excess estrogen, this way of being that doesn't sufficiently incorporate rest and yin, the other counterpart in our cycle. Okay, let's see. Okay, and the quest for balance. Okay, so all of that being said, I know things seem like grim, but I do want to say um, that despite how energetically imbalanced the world is now and how we can't skirt around that, um, it is also true that there is some major shift happening, I think, I believe, where the feminine is really awakening and women are awakening. We see it globally. Mother Earth, when I found this out, I was like just in tears. But that hurricanes, tsunamis, this is the Earth's attempt to cool herself. Ugh. And I feel the same way with women really coming back into themselves and doing a lot of the work, a lot of the work. I want to say there was a shift around COVID. I don't know. I want to open up this to a conversation about what you guys think. But I want to say there's been a marked shift towards coming into yourself, you know, opting out of these pre-laid paths for us of getting married by a certain age, having children by a certain age. Not that, I mean, those rates are declining, but not to throw those out, just to say that I think women are coming back into themselves and being really intentional about their energy. And I think that with everything that's happening globally, there is this call, there is this larger force that I think is bringing us all together. I mean, it brought us all here to have this conversation. And I just think it's really beautiful. And before every major expansion, there's this contraction. And I think that we're seeing the contraction right now, just like the Dahlia. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen that like beautiful video of the Dahlia, of it opening and growing and expanding, but you have this expansion and then a contraction and then a bigger expansion and then a contraction and a bigger expansion. And it just feels like we are in this contractive phase where, I mean, even geopolitically, we're just seeing so much chaos and contraction and like a tightening of reins on people and things. But I think it's because there is this undercurrent of the feminine that is really opening and really expansive on the other side of all of this. And even the Mayan calendar, which I don't know if you guys remember 2012 when the Mayan calendar ended, and we all saw it as like a doomsday event. At least the high school I went to was like, oh my gosh, is the world gonna end today? Like, we'll see, it's the end of the Mayan calendar. But that was never what the Mayan calendar was. The Mayan calendar prophesized that we were ending one major human civilization. They marked it by 12,000 year segments, and we were coming to the end of one 12,000 year segment. And this was going to start anew. And they stated that the feminine, I want to make sure I get this right, it was the, the feminine, the stewardship of the feminine was going to come back and sort of take the hand over what was happening. And I feel like that is so accurate to our times. Um, I also have some information about how to root your body during these times for inner balance. But I really do want to have a conversation about where everyone's at and if everyone has been, how everyone's been feeling and doing, just like in their bodies with everything. Okay, but before we do that, I think I'll talk about how we can root our vessel during this time, and then we'll start a conversation. Okay, great. So there are a lot of ways to like help root your body and help balance yourself internally despite things being, I'm not going to lie, objectively harder for us to do that. We are sort of swimming counter current, but it doesn't mean that we can't, you know, find balance for all of us individually. Um, and that is really like learning your physiology, like learning your cycle, learning your physiology in order to support your cycle. It really empowers you to understand any issue that you're having in the you understand it in the context of the female cycle, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm having allergies around ovulation. So therefore I'm having like excess histamine that's occurring. Oh, if I understand that in the context of my cycle when estrogen is peaking, and I understand the relationship between histamine, which is like this bucket we have that we can fill, it's like allergies and allergic reactions and stuff. If there's too much of it, then we start having all of these symptoms from it. So this is just an example of a way in which once you understand your physiology, you can root yourself in your knowledge and like better connect with your body about what's happening to help yourself. So we're just going to go over some ways that help ground your vessel in general. And the first one I have written down is the relationship between blood sugar and the nervous system. They're like this. So if we can root, like each meal you have is really an opportunity to root, to ground each meal. You can come back to the earth. Like you are eating of the earth, you can come back. It's just an understanding of what, a balanced meal looks like. If you eat protein, that lowers your blood sugar. If you eat carbs, it heightens your blood sugar. So you eat both of them and you get this nice, stable energy. And if you wake up shortly after, or if you eat, sorry, somewhat shortly after you wake up, instead of putting it off until noon or skipping breakfast entirely, you're rooting your body and your blood sugar for the day. And then it's just a matter of not going too long without eating your next meal so your blood sugar doesn't drop, because when your blood sugar falls too low, cortisol increases and your nervous system starts to get activated. So understanding that regular nourishing meals provide safety to the body. It's like, okay, I know I'm being well taken care of. I like your body will start to trust that it's safe and will start to trust that everything is okay, and it calms the nervous system down. Um, a couple other things I have written down is caffeine, like coffee consumption. And I think it's so ingrained into our culture, like wake up, have a coffee, and if you're in a metabolic state where that's supportive and it's not harmful to your adrenals, like you don't feel wiry after it, um, then yeah, absolutely. But I think also at the same time, if you are feeling excess nervousness, like your body is a little bit up here, in your minds, and like you don't feel as rooted, I think addressing caffeine consumption and maybe cutting it just to see how your body reacts to not having it can be really helpful. Like, for example, even in my personal life recently, my sleep has been disturbed because I've been working so much that I've sensed that my nervous system is having a hard time shutting down at night. It's like so used to go that it can be hard for my nervous system to go back into my rest and digest state. And so I've cut coffee, and it's been helping me fall asleep, because it's the little things like that that you can do throughout your day that you can address yourself to support your body that are going to make a really big difference in the long run. And, anything that you can do to help communicate to your nervous system that you're safe is going to be really helpful for your hormones, because excess cortisol translates into excess estrogen. They're interlinked like that. So if we can ground as much, if we can just make room for rest, for coming back into our bodies, for feeling, for crying, super grounding. Um, and then the final thing that I have written in this age of information and technology is how social media is this, like, I don't know, just your relationship with social media and if you think it's healthy. And it's tough because this stuff is programmed to be addictive. Like, it's not our brain's fault, not our brain's fault at all for getting swept into it. But I do think that, especially in terms of like being in your feminine energy, if you're in your feminine and you're just receiving, I feel like technology and social media and intaking so many micro bits of information can create this energetic block where you are intaking so much that you can't process it out. And it's like a wow, it's a lot. So Yeah, I just wrote that, maybe like a technology detox to help balance your energetic systems can be supportive as well. Um, I know I struggle with that. I feel like that's a generational thing. Okay, so I wanted to come back to, just this conversation of how everyone is doing and like, yeah, just how everyone is doing and in the context of the crazy and the systems that we live in. Um, and if you have any questions or comments or anything at all.
So amazing. I want to say something. Um, this is probably the 10th time that this has been explained to me, and this is the first time that I'm understanding it. So thank you for just the pictures, the use of vocabulary, even though I probably won't ever regurgitate those terms. I feel like I get it. And so thank you for that. And in terms of how I've been feeling, I was trying to think of how to even touch on this subject. And I feel like, thankfully, I do have the awareness that I need to seek balance in everything, and I make that attempt. And then there's just kind of what feels like a shift in the tide where now you have to find the new balance. Um, so even for example, I've been unemployed for a few months and I've been able to really support my body. And then even like finding the balance with being unemployed and also tapping into my yin. I think that's right. Or is it tapping into my yang where I'm actually doing?
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm stepping back into the workforce and I'm trying to rethink on, okay, how am I going to find the new balance while now being busier? So yeah, this is the
Totally.
conversation that I think I just need to like be reminded of because in the shift of it all, I can lose my body and I'm like, oh yeah, I have one. Like I need to take care of it.
Right. Right. That's beautiful. I'm so glad that everything made sense. Like, it's so crazy that we grew up, and I feel like none of us were taught this. Like, we're just walking around in completely different biologies, physiologies, and we're not taught anything except how to insert a tampon. Like, we're not even taught about ovulation. It's so wild. So I'm really glad that you feel like that clicked, and I totally get you on the like finding a new equilibrium after, being in the throes of it and then being able to come back into yourself. How do we reintegrate the masculine and the doing in a healthy way that the body can sustain? And yeah, I feel like I'm totally there with you on that. That's like a lifelong
Mhm.
work on equilibrium and balancing. But I'm so glad that it made sense. Yay.
Thank you, Mackenzie. And I was gonna say too, like even on the macro level with like the politics that are happening right now, trying to find the balance, the consumption of social media. Being off doesn't feel supportive. So also like finding a schedule and a rhythm that is supportive. Because we do, I think I'd like to be informed to some degree, you know.
Absolutely. Totally. That's crazy as well. I feel like I'll talk to my friends and we'll be catching up and I'll be like, these are unprecedented times. And then every next time I talk to them, it's again, these are unprecedented times. But it's like the bar just keeps getting higher. And I'm like, yo, will it stop? But we're rooting. We've got it.
Yeah.
I'm so
Thank
glad
you.
you're here. But yeah.
I loved that response, Mayday. And thank you, Mackenzie. That was so good and informative. And I want other people to ask questions. But I actually have, like, well, the first thing that's coming to mind when you were talking about it's like, especially when it comes to caffeine, I struggle with this. And something that I've, like, really tried to integrate um, that this reminds me of is this energy of like allowing yourself to be tired. And I feel like we haven't really given ourselves permission as women, or at least I haven't, to like, who am I when I'm tired? You know? And like allowing that to be okay, because we're so obsessed with like performance and like being at our optimal like productivity. So like bring the coffee, bring the lattes, right? So I can like be at my like the height of who I am. And just this concept of like, really, I love the way you speak about the luteal, just because I think that's the part of the cycle that I at least struggle the most with. um, it's like the part of the cycle that I tend to like resent, and like I feel least myself, right? And just honoring that that is actually like such an essential part of myself, and like allowing myself to feel all the things that I'm feeling and allow myself to be tired. Like I just think that word is just hard for me to deal with, just because you have to balance it out with like also getting shit done, and like, you know, socializing, and just like honoring the introverted side of me, the part that wants to rest, the one to do things tired too. Like you can still do things, but you can do it tired, you can do it slow, and it doesn't have to be the same way. So that's one thing. And then another thing that I was thinking of when we were talking about technology is, because we experience there's so much yang in output, I think of like for many of us, like our restorative time is like scrolling. And so I think it's just so interesting that we're like receiving during this like restorative time, but it's actually so like fraudulent for lack of a better word. Like literally, like it's fraudulent like restorative time, because it's like expelling energy at the same time. It's like stealing your dopamine while you feel like you're receiving, because you're trying to restore, because of all the yang that you're doing throughout the day. So like those two things were things I'm curious what you think.
Yes, Tam. Oh my gosh, those are both such good points. On the technology front, I mean, it couldn't be more true what you said. It's like our new rest is, I don't know, sort of like dissociating and like constantly intaking little bits of information. Um, yeah, it's hard because once it's wired as something that your body does for self-soothing, it's hard to detangle that. Um, so I really relate to that being an issue. Um, and then rest, dude. Oh my gosh, I know. I mean, we've been wired since we were so young. Like it just is the way it is. Everything is about your output, about your productivity. So I think it makes a lot of sense that, there's this resistance to rest because it's really a radical act, honestly, to prioritize. Rest, I feel like has been framed as something, it's literally something you do when you die, Like, what is that saying?
You'll sleep when you
It's
die.
Yeah, that's loco coco, okay? None of that.
I'm
Thanks.
I'm curious if you have. I work with a lot of clients, and a constant question that I get asked all the time is like, what are some things that I can do to help me restore?
Mm,
And like, I'm so curious from like your perspective. I know what I say, and like a lot of that is like you could assume the answers that I give, because I think people are craving like restorative practices, because we think it's like we're not men, you know, it's not like just awake or then sleep. I think that tends to be like the energetics for men, but for women, like what do we do while we're awake and we're like in luteal and we're trying to restore, like, but we know that this is not, oops, I just dropped this, but we know that the phone is not the the best practice, but it feels like the most accessible or sometimes the only option. So I'm curious what practices you would suggest.
yeah, what are the modern restorative things that we can do to relax? That's a really good question. For me personally, my number one is to take a bath.
Yeah.
I feel like so much can be worked out energetically by sitting in a pool of water. I
Yeah.
really do. I moved recently to an apartment and it doesn't have a bathtub and it's tough. It's tough. So I'll say for me, baths bathing is really big. Just like lying around on your yoga mat. Like I don't pull up a flow on a screen or anything. Just getting into pigeon pose and lying there for a while, trying to be off your phone and seeing where your imagination goes. Because also
Mm-hmm.
in your luteal and like into the beginning of your period is a time where things come up. Like things really, we're shedding every month and things come up that want to be released. And I think it's a beautiful process that we get to energetically let go every month. And so just sort of finding quiet things to do that feel intuitive to you and that allows space for things to come up if they want to come up. Yeah, a luteal phase is a powerful time to rest, quiet, and really feel what wants to move.
That's really supportive because and yeah, Caitlin saying reading, that's like, especially like a fantasy novel, I find myself to be really creative. I think like it's interesting. I always see online like people are like, my most creative is like ovulation and like yes and but like my luteal phase, I randomly, and I wonder if other people relate to this, I get these bursts of creativity even in my menstruation too, like feeling very creative, um, and wanting to like honor, like I know my luteal, so I want to like honor myself, but I also want to like channel this creativity. So like I think even like watercolors, like anything that feels like slow creativity is like kind of something that I'm very curious about, more of like that doesn't feel like low effort but like more intuitive and more like almost like a folding, if that makes sense. Like collaging, it sounds like something that would be fun. um, you know, something that can allow me to feel with myself and not so high effort. And I think that is a lot of creative acts, but sometimes, you know, sometimes creative acts can feel a bit more like playing, for me, like playing music feels like hard to do if I'm like, because I'm not fluent in an instrument, I guess. So that takes like a higher level of energy. Um, but yeah, it just makes me think. And I see that Caitlin even said like reading has become a really nice thing for me to do that's not scrolling. And I think that's so true. I feel like, yeah, Mackenzie and I, we read A Court of Roses and Thorns, and I feel like that's like the fantasy world is so good. And I remember when I first started reading the first book, I was like on my bleed, and that was like a huge, it was like the best thing to do at that time. But I'll open up the space for other people. Yes, fantasy, Caitlin. If anyone else wants to speak.
I just want to say heck yeah to that, Tam. All of that. And also A Court of Thorns and Roses. Oh my gosh. Talk about like healthy masculine if that's what you're craving. Oh my gosh. The characters are so written for women. They're amazing. So that felt very honestly healing to read those books. Can I just say? Like,
Yeah.
what is that genre again? What is that called, Tim?
Mutt.
Smut. Yeah. Smut feels very healing in that way. Yeah. It like helped me reset my standard for men. Yeah. Just like expectations around love. Not that it's gonna, I'll stop talking. I'm not expecting a fantasy, but healthy masculine.
Caitlin saying healthy love or romantasy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I also think it's interesting that you're saying that there's like such a overdue on yang, but we're also seeing like such a masculinity crisis in the world. So like I think like it's the imbalance of yin and yang is not only do we feel it, but we also see it like manifesting like in men. And so I think that's a really interesting conversation. And then I have another question I really want other people to ask, but my other question is like, what's your take on like fasting and juice cleanses and things like that? Because I actually have a friend who's doing that right now, and so I'm curious, like based on the physiology of it all, like she is such a big believer on like a 7-day food, like no food fast or only juice cleanse, and like she's just and enemas and like shit like that.
Okay. What was your first question again, Tam?
It was just more of a conversation. It was just the fact that like we're seeing
Oh,
the impact of the yin yang imbalance on men in such an interesting way, and like kind of you wouldn't intuitively think that based on do you know what I mean when you first think
totally,
about it?
totally. I feel like we've been seeing a lot of women who get sick from our society, as to where with men, it's like their their anima or their feminine counterpart, if that's completely out of whack and suppressed, that sometimes they literally just like it gets really bad for men, and it's really sad to see. And then in terms of fasting, if you are someone who is very metabolically healthy, like you can not eat for a really long time and still feel solid, like your blood sugar doesn't dip, like your nutrient stores are really high and your mineral stores are really high, like epigenetics, things like that. We're all very bio individual. And if your body can handle it and it feels good, like I know people fast for spiritual reasons, etc., as well. Um, there is a lot of autophagy that happens, like this intracellular cleaning when you fast. Um, that's what happens when your body goes into ketosis. And I know that's its own like subsect of nutrition, like fads and things. But that is the secondary system in our body. Like to operate in that state all the time. So I guess this is specific to ketosis and not necessarily fasting, but like the keto diet where you're constantly in that state and you're not eating any carbohydrates at all is really, really not supportive of the female cycle and of fertility. Um, it's really harmful for your thyroid, for your liver. That's what I'll say about keto fasting, short term fasting. If your body is okay to do it and you feel good when you do it, then yes. But if you're the type of person that wakes up and you have a coffee and then you feel really jittery and you're just generally not very grounded, then to do a fast where you have nothing rooting you, um, I really don't recommend anything, especially in the context that we're living in now and the demands on the female body just in general, like just living the current lifestyles that we do is, I think, excessively stressful on the female body. And so furthering that stress by doing like extreme diets or extreme fasts is generally not supportive, generally not supportive, and can further create imbalances and deficiencies and things if you are not sufficiently supplied when you do that stuff. But good question, Tam.
Yeah, and that makes sense in terms of like balance, right? Like if
Yeah.
you're, especially because what you're talking about is like food is a tool for rooting. So if you're like looking to root, like that is like so taking that natural thing away from you, like you're kind of just keeping yourself like more, for lack of a better, like disconnected from the earth, or you're, which I do think is why people fast for spiritual reasons, right? Like you're kind of thinning the veil to some degree. But if you're somebody that, like, I think as women, like, it is really like the nervous system regulation, feeling connected to the earth is really important, especially for these times. And if you're looking to like balance and at least for me, I'll speak for myself. Like, I do think like for me, removing food out of the equation, like I don't know how supportive that would be if I'm not feeling connected to the earth and feeling grounded and rooted. Versus maybe if you're somebody that's feeling very weighed down and like, you know what I mean, like very weighed down by everything, and like you're looking to do like a fast for like a spiritual reason to connect to your guides or whatever it is that you believe in. That might be like a supportive thing.
Totally, totally. And I will just say also that if someone were to do an extended fast in like your follicular phase or like at the start of your period or something, that will definitely delay at least your ovulation. Like that is objectively, even if it's for something positive, like spiritual guides, totally,
Right.
biologically, that is a stress on the body. And so it's suppressive of fertility. And that's why a lot of women, when they do like keto and like restrictive dieting, their periods will just stop.
That makes
They'll
sense.
just stop.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Of course. Questions are so good, Tam.
Thanks. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments? Feel free to unmute. You can also write something in the chat. And I also just want to check in with everyone. How's everyone feeling like after? Oh, yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Emily said this was
Yay.
helpful.
I'm
Oh,
so glad Emily's here. We went to school together growing up, and I haven't seen her in a very long time. Thank you for being here, Em.
yay. Well, Mackenzie, I don't know if you want to like plug anything. I know people have the opportunity to work with you one-on-one if they're interested. So I would love it if you could tell everyone a little bit more about that. And also the space is still open if anyone would like to like comment or share or ask a question.
Okay, I'll open the floor for any last questions or comments or anything in the Sorry, did you guys hear that?
No.
Oh, you don't hear notification pings? Oh, fabulous. Okay, sorry. So if you have any last questions, anybody, or comments or anything, um, um, okay, so I will, yes, plug my information. I work one-on-one with people to address hormonal imbalances. Like we take everything into account, your history, where your body's at symptomatically, how your cycles are doing, and then based on that, we can figure out like a nutritional or lifestyle plan that would help resolve hormonal issues and bring you more so back into balance. So I will put my email and then and also my Instagram, which I think you guys already saw. Ecology on Instagram. But then also, this is donation based. I just want to get information out to women. That's what I feel passionate about. But if you'd like to donate, Tam, you said I should plug my Venmo or something.
Yeah. Your Venmo, your Zelle. Yeah, personally to Mackenzie because all of that will go to her. So yeah, it'll just be easier that way.
That's just my name.
Yes, so feel free to copy that. But thank you so much, Mackenzie. This was incredible. You killed it.
Oh, thank
And
you, Tam.
I'm so curious, like if everyone wants to drop into the chat, I know everyone kind of already thanked you and sang your praises, but just noticing coming back to yourself and to your heart, just notice how you feel, like receiving this information, integrating it. How does it land for you? Yeah, I'm so curious how everyone's feeling. Optimistic. Yeah, I love that. Sam says thank you. Closer to a balanced world. Aw, that's so special.
Oh.
Incredible. And I will just plug for people who are for in the CAYA community, something that we have coming up at the end of this month, which is like honestly 11 days away, we're gonna have another free event. It's going to be an open mic night, and the theme of this one is going to be the voice of the inner teen, because that was what was majority voted. And so every open mic, what we're trying to do is it's going to be the fourth Thursday of the month, and we'll assign a different theme. But ultimately, any piece of work that you've created, anything that you want to share or express is welcome. So it doesn't have to always be like aligned with your theme. And you could argue that anything you've written is from the voice of your inner teen, to be honest. So if you're interested in that, let me know. But that's coming up. And then another thing that's coming up this summer is called Summer Storytelling Sessions, which is for the blocked and the becoming. So if you're somebody that feels blocked in your throat chakra, or you're looking to expand your ability to storytell and to share, either that be fiction or your own personal story, that's something to look out for. I don't have it fully, me and my friend Mariah are doing that, so that's not fully like complete, the container, but it's going to be something really cool. So that's something to look forward to in CAYA. And if you're somebody that would like to collaborate, please reach out to us. We're super open to so many different lenses and perspectives, and I really do believe that like everything is creative. So I love learning and connecting to new people. So that's just, and if you, it can be like what Mackenzie did. It can be in a different format. I mean, we are open. But I don't know if Mackenzie, you'd like to share some closing words.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. And I don't know, just like I said about the shift happening, it really feels like I really feel it when we all come together and have conversations like this. So I'm just very grateful to have them. And we're pack animals, and it's just good to convene about these things. So thank you, guys. And I'm here for you. Reach out.
I've worked with Mackenzie sorry, I didn't mean to.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna testimony. I've worked with Mackenzie a little bit as a friend, and I like when she was going through her program for getting her NTP, I think it's the label. She helped me a lot, and that was so supportive. So I have to say, Mackenzie's absolutely brilliant when it comes to this work. So I highly recommend following her, working with her. Like, she is so gifted, and just her brain is very expansive and very special.
Thank you, Tam Tam. Good girl. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for coming. And you've got my number, so until next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, babes. Have a beautiful rest of your night.
Have a good night, everyone.